The storm arrived without mercy. One moment the sea was calm beneath a bright afternoon sun, and the next, towering waves rose like mountains, swallowing our boat whole. I still remember the sound of wood breaking, the roar of the wind, and the terrifying silence that came after I woke up lying on warm sand beneath a sky so blue it almost mocked our suffering. I wasn't alone. A woman lay unconscious a few feet away, the tide gently washing against her feet. Neither of us knew it then, but that lonely island would become the place where broken hearts were forced to heal before they could ever hope to escape. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Journey of Kindness. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like this to life. My name was Rowan, a marine mechanic who had spent years fixing boats because machines were easier to understand than people. After losing my younger sister in a tragic accident years earlier, I had quietly separated myself from the world. I rarely smiled, avoided friendships, and believed loneliness was simply my punishment for surviving when she hadn't. The fishing charter I accepted that week wasn't about adventure. It was simply another job. The woman lying on the beach had been one of the passengers. Her name was Maria, although I wouldn't learn that until much later. When she finally opened her eyes, fear rushed across her face before relief replaced it. She looked around desperately, searching for familiar faces, but all she found was endless ocean surrounding a small tropical island covered in towering palms and dense jungle. There were no rescue boats. No airplanes. No signs of civilization. Only silence, broken by distant waves and tropical birds singing as though nothing terrible had happened. The first few days became a battle against nature itself. We searched every inch of the shoreline for anything that had floated ashore from the wreck. We found pieces of wood, a broken cooler, several bottles of fresh water, a fishing knife, and enough canned food to survive only a few days. Every sunset reminded us that rescue wasn't guaranteed. Every sunrise meant another day we had to earn our survival. Building shelter became our first priority. We worked together beneath the scorching daytime sun, tying palm leaves together, collecting fallen branches, and creating a simple hut beside a freshwater stream hidden deep within the island. Neither of us complained, even though our hands bled from rough wood and sharp vines. Survival didn't leave room for pride. For nearly a week we spoke only when necessary. Our conversations were practical and brief. We discussed water, food, weather, and fire. Nothing more. Both of us carried invisible wounds much deeper than the bruises covering our bodies. Everything changed one quiet afternoon after heavy rain had soaked the island. We sat beneath the shelter watching water drip from the leaves. Without looking at me, Maria whispered the words that would remain with me forever. She admitted she wasn't afraid of hunger anymore. She wasn't even afraid of dying. She was afraid of dying without ever feeling needed again. Her voice trembled as she explained that before boarding the boat, her husband had left her after 15 years of marriage, telling her she had become someone impossible to love. She had spent months blaming herself, believing she wasn't enough, believing she had somehow failed simply by growing older. Then she looked toward the ocean with tears filling her eyes and quietly said, "I'm just a woman, and you're what I need." Those words weren't about romance. They weren't about desire. They were about hope. She simply meant she needed another human being who wouldn't abandon her. Someone who would remind her she still mattered. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I remembered my own silence after my sister died. I remembered shutting everyone out until even the people trying to help eventually stopped trying. Perhaps we were both stranded long before the storm ever reached us. From that day forward, everything between us slowly changed. We became partners instead of strangers. Each morning we searched different parts of the island together. We learned where coconuts grew. We caught fish using sharpened sticks. We built a stronger shelter with a raised wooden platform to keep us safe from insects during the night. We created large rescue signs on the beach using dark volcanic rocks that could hopefully be seen from the sky. Days turned into weeks. The island became strangely beautiful. Bright parrots flew overhead each morning. Crystal clear water reflected clouds that looked close enough to touch. Gentle breezes carried the scent of tropical flowers through the forest. Under different circumstances it might have been paradise. But paradise without hope slowly becomes another kind of prison. One afternoon while exploring the cliffs, Maria slipped on wet stone. She nearly fell into the crashing waves below before I caught her wrist with both hands. For several terrifying seconds, I struggled to pull her back onto solid ground. My muscles screamed with exhaustion, but I refused to let go. When she finally reached safety, neither of us spoke. She simply wrapped her arms around me and cried harder than I had ever seen anyone cry. That night, sitting beside the fire, she confessed something else. She had boarded the cruise hoping the ocean would somehow help her forget the life she had lost. Instead, the ocean had taken everything away, leaving only the truth she could no longer hide from herself. She wasn't broken because someone stopped loving her. She had simply forgotten how to love herself. Those words changed me too. I began telling her about my sister. About the guilt I had carried for years. About how I believed happiness was something I no longer deserved. She listened without interrupting. Sometimes healing doesn't begin with advice. Sometimes it begins with someone willing to stay. Weeks continued passing. We created routines that gave our lives purpose. Every morning we gathered food. Every afternoon we searched the horizon for ships. Every evening we watched sunsets paint the ocean with impossible shades of gold and crimson. We laughed more often. We smiled without realizing it. One morning we discovered sea turtle eggs buried beneath the sand. Rather than taking them for food, we protected the nest with driftwood, deciding those tiny lives deserved their chance too. Watching the baby turtles finally crawl toward the ocean weeks later reminded both of us that even the smallest creatures know which direction hope lies. The rainy season eventually arrived. Violent storms destroyed much of our shelter. Our stored firewood became soaked. For 3 days we survived only by wrapping ourselves beneath palm leaves while thunder shook the island. During one freezing night, I developed a high fever from an infected cut on my leg. My body became too weak to stand. Maria never left my side. She carried fresh water from the stream countless times each day. She gathered medicinal plants she remembered learning about from her grandmother as a little girl. She stayed awake through every night, cooling my forehead with wet cloths while whispering that I wasn't allowed to give up. When I finally recovered, I realized something extraordinary. The woman who believed she was weak had become the strongest person I had ever known. Nearly 2 months after the shipwreck, we spotted something on the horizon. Smoke. Far away. Not from another island. From a fishing boat. We immediately lit the largest signal fire we could manage. Thick black smoke rose high above the trees. For endless minutes nothing happened. Then the boat slowly turned. It was heading toward us. Neither of us celebrated immediately. We had learned not to trust hope too quickly. But as the boat grew larger, tears filled both our eyes. We were finally going home. The fishermen embraced us like family. They gave us food, blankets, and clean drinking water. As our island disappeared into the distance, I looked beside me. Maria wasn't smiling. She was quietly watching the place that had nearly taken our lives. Then she whispered that strange truth life sometimes teaches in impossible places. The island hadn't only trapped us. It had also set us free. Back on the mainland, reporters wanted dramatic survival stories. They wanted tales about danger, starvation, and storms. We gave them those stories. But we never told them the most important part. The greatest rescue didn't happen when the fishing boat found us. It happened when 2 wounded strangers stopped pretending they were strong enough to carry life's pain alone. Months later, we remained close friends. Neither of us rushed into romance because healing isn't a race. Instead, we built lives we were finally proud of. Maria opened a counseling center for women rebuilding their confidence after heartbreak. I began volunteering with ocean rescue organizations, helping families search for missing sailors whenever storms struck. Sometimes life throws us onto islands we never chose. Sometimes the storms steal everything we believed made us whole. But even in the loneliest places, kindness has a way of finding us through another human heart. And sometimes, the person who quietly says they need you becomes the very person who reminds you that you needed saving too. That is how 2 strangers survived a forgotten island, and how, long after the waves faded into memory, they carried the greatest treasure home. Not rescue, but the courage to believe in life, in kindness, and in second chances once again.